this video, we are going to be talking about what happened to the domestic manufacturers here in the United States and why it is that they will not be returning anytime soon, not in any kind of meaningful way. I mean, we might have some return of manufacturing back to the United States, but it's not going to be so meaningful that we're going to have some great, big, powerful manufacturing state again, like once had happened here, like a lot of people want to remember. And really, we don't have to look too far into it other than the Cantillon essay. Now, a lot of you know that I follow the Cantillon essay, and I've read this many times on this channel talking about how new money comes into a particular economy. People move into luxuries, it separates the rich from the poor. You find domestic manufacturers moving out and ever increasing amounts of foreign production moving in. This is a one-way street. You're not going to be moving the opposite direction. The problem is people moving into luxuries, the luxurious experience that people so desperately want in their lives. They work incredibly hard for it, and then once they move into that luxurious experience, the deterioration of the economy begins. So I'm going to read from Cantillon's essay. This is chapter 8, part 2, chapter 8, further reflections on the increase and decrease of money in the state. This is so telling. Again, he wrote this hundreds of years ago. Listen to some of the things that he says. Now, granted, he was talking back in the day when they had horses and wagons. We have cell phones and airplanes. It's a totally different type of economy with the way that we do transactions, but the underlying economic forces are still at play, and this is important. So the abstract of this goes like this. Increases in the supply of money from a balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. So a balance of trade, right? So we're increasing the amount of money we have because we are producing wonderful stuff and sending it out there to the world. The world is sending us their money, right? The increase in the supply of money from a balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. We get the money, prices move up. Once prices move up, right? This in turn puts pressure on domestic producers and increases the imports. Because once you have increased the money, you increase the prices, everything starts getting more expensive, foreign competition starts to move in because they can make it cheaper. Right? So this puts pressure on domestic producers and increases imports. The result is the balance of trade is reduced and eventually is negative. This is the Cantillon price-specie flow mechanism, which demonstrates the reason for the tendencies for equilibrium in the international monetary flows. The balance of trade can result in economic power, but thus also causes the economy to lapse into luxury and decline. So at first, when you have the balance of trade, it's awesome. You're building all the world's greatest stuff. You export that stuff to the world. The world sends you their money, right? Sends us their money. We increase our standard of living. Everything gets more expensive. And then foreign producers start to move in and domestic manufacturers start to move out until the whole thing eventually collapses. Now, this is essentially what was going to happen back in the early 70s, but Nixon severed ourselves from the gold standard when it was time to relinquish the gold back out there to the world. The equilibrium that Cantillon is talking about, right? The balance of trade can result in this, or I'm sorry, Cantillon's price-specie flow mechanism, which demonstrates the reason for the tendency for equilibrium in the international monetary flows. Once you have all the gold and you deny the rest of the world from having the ability to do transactions, you end up suffering the consequences of having to relinquish all that gold back out there to the rest of the world. That's when we said, nah, we're going to sever ourselves from that, and we're going to go into ever-increasing amounts of debt issuance, and the U.S. Treasury will now take the place of gold. That's essentially what we did. This brought in ever-increasing amounts of new money. That new money kept buying ever-increasing amounts of foreign production, and our domestic manufacturers kept moving out. This is what Cantillon was describing hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Like all these people out there is like, oh no, it has to do with this political nonsense or all these, all these issues that come generally from a government or government action is the symptom. It's the results of this. Cantillon can describe it way ahead of everybody who is blaming it on politics. Cantillon was describing it from new money flows, because that's what's doing it. Everything else that we witness, all the blame on government and all that other stuff, those are symptoms. Those are symptoms of the problem. All right, let's break this down a little bit. Again, if you want this essay, you can get it. There's a link down in the description to an Amazon affiliate link. You can buy the essay off of Amazon. I get a little commission off of it, but you do not have to buy this essay off of Amazon. You can get it for free at the Mises Institute just by Googling Cantillon essay on economic theory. All right. Okay. We have seen that we have seen that the quantity of money circulating in a state may be increased by working its mines, by subsidies from foreign powers, by the immigration of foreign families, by the residence of ambassadors and travelers, but above all, by regular and annual balance of trade. Now, there's all kinds of ways of bringing in new money. Now, back in the day, Cantillon didn't have the U.S. Treasury, right? But back in his day, it was mines, subsidies from foreign powers, immigration of foreign families, and the residence of ambassadors and travelers. But above all, it was the production of the state, right? By annual balance of trade from supplying goods to foreigners and by receiving from them at least part of the price in gold and silver. They export stuff, you import gold and silver. That is the best way to bring in new money. Recognized hundreds of years ago, and that's still the case today. All right. But nobody really does it with gold and silver. Okay. It is by this last means that a state grows most substantially, right? By having the biggest manufacturing powerhouse capability, you will be the top dog, right? Just like the United States was back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, even into the 70s and 80s, really. Okay. It is by this last means that the state grows most substantially, especially when its trade is accompanied and supported by ample shipping and by significant output of raw materials necessary for the production of the exported manufactured goods. So if you're exporting all this stuff, you're going to be rolling in it. You're going to be just bringing it in like crazy. However, this is where the however comes in, because people say, yeah, man, we need to be back in that state, in that position, you know, where we're exporting stuff and importing the money. Listen to this. However, the continuation of this commerce gradually introduces a great abundance of money. This is what the United States is experiencing, a great abundance of money. Okay? And little by little increases its consumption. Oh, you think the United States is a consumer? That's it. That's all we do is consume, right? But it increases the consumption when you have new money. Foreign products must be imported to meet this demand and must be paid for by the reduction in annual balance of trade. That means the more that those prices go up, the more you're going to be buying foreign production and the more that you are going to lose your domestic manufacturers. Again, this is being talked about hundreds of years before the politics. We can go ahead and blame politics all day long, but understanding the economic forces is more important. So much more important. I mean, again, if he can describe it hundreds of years ago and didn't include politics into it, then there's no reason to now change the fact that the underlying economic forces are at play. It's like gravity, right? On the other hand, the increased expenditures increase the cost of labor and the price of manufactured goods. It often happens that some foreign countries try to set up the same kind of factories for themselves in which case they stop buying those of the state in question. See, this is the problem that we face here, is that there's going to be foreign producers making the same stuff that we're going to try and make, but the only problem is they're going to have it cheaper than anybody else, and they certainly aren't going to be buying it from us if they're making it themselves too. All right? So as soon as manufacturing starts to kick in outside of the United States in order to, I mean, whether they do it in good or not, but in any sense, even if they don't set up a good manufacturing place, what they are ending up doing, even if their products are inferior, they are going to essentially deny the purchases coming from you, even if you make a superior product. You see where I'm getting at? Your quality doesn't meet their available, even if it's cheaper, position. Basically, they make it cheaper for themselves than they would buy from you. All right, even if it's crap stuff. All right. Okay, although these new establishment factories are not perfect at first. They reduce and eventually they reduce and even prevent the exporting of those goods from the neighboring state into their own country where they can be acquired for a better price, just like I was saying. Okay, in this manner, the state begins to lose some branches of its profitable trade, and many of its workmen and artisans who lose their jobs will leave the state to find employment in new foreign factories. Well, if you're stuck and you can't leave, then, essentially you're not going to go anywhere. In spite of this diminution in the balance of trade, the custom of importing various products will continue. That's right, you will continue to import those foreign products because you have a higher standard of living and you're going to demand them, right? If manufactured products of a state have a great reputation and can be shipped to a distant country or distant countries at low cost, the state will maintain its advantage over the new foreign manufacturers for many years and will maintain a small balance of trade, or at least keep it even. This is important to understand. If you have the distribution network, if you can distribute your product better than anybody else can, you have the distribution, the shipping channels, you can produce it more expensive than a foreigner can, and you're going to get the market because you can actually transport that stuff. You have control of it all. This is, again, where the United States steps up with their military power, right? If you control the shipping channels, you control the commerce. All right. And he even says that right there. Even in a state that has more expensive, if they own that shipping, that's really all they need. If, however, some other maritime state tries to perfect the same articles, its navigation at the same time, it will, because of its cheapness of its manufacturers, take away several branches of trade from the state in question. They will eventually figure it out. They will ship it cheaper, they will make it cheaper, and they're going to do it better than you, even if you have a higher quality product. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with politics. It's important. If you exclude the politics out of this, it's super easy to see. But the moment that you want to inject politics into it, it gets very complicated and very difficult to understand the underlying economic forces that are at play. All right. Consequently, this state will begin to lose its balance of trade and will be forced to send a part of its money abroad every year in order to pay for its imports. That's what we were experiencing going up into the 70s when Nixon severed us from the gold standard. We were importing stuff and exporting money, right? Consequently, the state will begin to lose its balance of trade, right? We weren't exporting as much stuff, and will be forced to send part of its money abroad. They were going to send the gold abroad. And they said, no more. We're not going to do it. Moreover, even if the state in question could keep a balance of trade and its greater abundance of money, it is reasonable to suppose that this abundance will plunge many wealthy individuals into luxury. All the people who have money will buy luxury. They will buy luxurious experiences and items. This is the problem. They will buy paintings, precious stones from abroad. They will want silks and rare objects. And they set such an example of luxury in the state that in spite of the advantage of its ordinary trade, its money will flow abroad annually to pay for this luxury. Your luxurious experience is the problem. This will gradually impoverish the state and cause it to pass from great power into great weakness. How many times have I put this video out? It's your luxurious life that is causing the problem. It's the reason why we are losing our domestic manufacturers. It's the reason why we have such separation between the rich and the poor. It's all because of a luxurious experience. Right there. They will buy paintings, precious stones from abroad. They will want silks and rare objects, and they will set such an example of luxury in a state that in spite of the advantage of its ordinary trade, its money will flow abroad annually to pay for this luxury. This will gradually impoverish the state and cause it to pass from great power into great weakness. That, again, described hundreds of years ago. When a state has arrived at its highest point of wealth, and I always assume that the comparative wealth of the state consists mainly in their respective quantities of money, it will inevitably fall back into poverty by the ordinary course of things. The too great abundance of money, which gives power to the state so long as it lasts, throws them back impressively. I'm a horrible speaker. Impressively, but naturally into poverty. This is the result: poverty. Right? Too great abundance of money, which gives power to the state, so long as it lasts, throws them back naturally into poverty, impressively and naturally into poverty. Thus, it would seem that when a state expands its trade, or expands by trade, the abundance of money raises the price of land and labor. The prince or the legislator ought to withdraw the money from circulation, keep it for emergencies, and try to slow down its circulation by every means, except compulsion in bad faith, to prevent its goods from becoming too expensive and avoid the drawbacks of luxury. This is what he's saying. He's basically saying that the administration should put a boot on the face of the people and prevent them from moving into luxury. There's no answer for this. This is the reason why we have to understand it for what it is. It's the underlying economic force. The answer to it is a problem you do not want to experience. What we're going into is a problem nobody wants to experience. It's better to understand what it is that's happening so you can position yourself for it, because either way, it's not going to be a good deal. However, it is not easy to perceive the opportune time for this, or to know when the money has become more abundant than it ought to be for the good and preservation of the advantage of the state. Therefore, princes and heads of the republics do not concern themselves much with this sort of knowledge, and strive only to make use of the abundance of their state revenues to extend their power and to insult other countries on the most frivolous pretexts. This is what they do. It's not any kind of position in which that people think is somehow invented, or I don't know, like all the conspiracy bullshit that you hear out there. This has been described hundreds of years ago and says that it will happen time and time and time again. All right? I mean, think about it. The princes and the heads of the republics do not concern themselves much with this sort of knowledge, and they strive only to make use of the abundance of their state revenues to extend their powers and to insult other countries on the most frivolous pretexts. How many times have you heard this? I mean, maybe not in those exact words. How many times have you heard it out there? All things considered, working to perpetuate the glory of their reigns and administration, and to leaving monuments of their power and wealth, is perhaps the best that they can do, because according to the natural course of humanity, the state must collapse on its own. They, right, the powers that be, they only accelerate its fall by a little, because it's inevitable. There is nothing that they can do to stop it. Nevertheless, it seems that they should try to make their power last during the time of their own administration. They should try. They won't. Few years are needed to raise the abundance to the highest point in the state. However, still fewer are needed to bring it into poverty for the lack of commerce and manufacturing. Without speaking of the rise and fall of Venice Republic and the Hanseatic cities, Flanders and Brabant. I'm sorry, guys, I'm butchering all these old names here. The Dutch Republic, who have succeeded each other in profitable branches of trade, one may say that France's power has only been on the rise from 1646, when factories were established to produce clothing which had previously been imported, to 1684, when a number of Protestant entrepreneurs and artisans were driven out of France. The kingdom has done nothing but recede since this last date. You see what's happening here, guys? Like, if you can go back and understand, to know that the underlying economic forces that are at play here, then you can look at the politics and know and see how it is that they are reacting to the economy. They are not creating the economy. They react to it. They are the symptom. All right. What time is it? All right, cool. I got a few more minutes here. All right, this is a good part right here. It says, I know no better measure than the leases and rents of property owners to judge the abundance and scarcity of money in circulation. Think about that. The leases and rents of property to judge the abundance or scarcity of money in circulation. Rents and leases. When land is leased at high rates, it's a sign that there is plenty of money in the state. But when land has to be leased at a much lower rate, it shows other things being equal, that money is scarce. This goes on, but I think we should probably start talking about it. Let's do a little reading of the comments here. We're 21 minutes into this video. I think this was very telling. I think the people who have listened to this video to this point right here are getting a much better understanding of what it is that's taken place. When you are a manufacturing powerhouse, you will accumulate the world's gold. When you accumulate the world's gold, you will deny the rest of the world the ability to do transactions. When that takes place, an equilibrium happens in which that the relinquishing of the gold, the redistribution of the wealth takes place. We denied the world that in the 70s. We said, no, thank you. We will keep the gold. We are not going to redistribute it. And what we are going to do is use U.S. treasuries in place of the gold. People didn't want to do it. They didn't like it. They said, no, thank you. However, they had no other choice. They wanted to eat. They wanted to do transactions. Here we are today. U.S. Treasury debts are essentially what was used, or what gold was used for. People back up everything on their balance sheets, everything with their currencies, all their transactions that they do. It's all done with the idea that U.S. Treasury debt exists. This is hard to wrap your head around. I understand that, especially those who seem to think that we have some kind of ability to return manufacturing back to this country. The only way to do it is to end the luxurious way of living. That's the only way, because it's the luxurious way of living that created the problem. And in order to end the luxurious way of life, you're going to have a boot come down on the face of humanity. It's not, there's no other way around it, guys. You're right, that's true. We're all Google's product, actually. No, I totally agree with that. I mean, if I'm a good Googler, if I put out the information, the propagandized information that Google wants me to, I can get really good views. I can get a lot of views. They'll spread that stuff. But if I put out videos that they don't want spread, if I talk about homeless or cannabis, right? No YouTube algorithm for me, no monetization, cut that stuff off. But if you want to spread some good old propaganda, oh man, tens of thousands of views. Or just fear-mongering in general. It doesn't matter if it's propaganda or not, just fear-mongering will do it. And I mean, all you need proof of it is just look at my videos for the last 2 weeks. I've been doing some very triggering, clickbaiting titles, and those videos are absolutely killing it out there with views. The information within the video doesn't change. Nothing changes about the way I do my videos, right? I am very consistent. I am straightforward. I, stick to my guns. On everything. Like, there is no changes to the way that I do my videos. The only thing that I changed was the title and the description and the thumbnail. And I make them scary and fear-mongering and triggering, and it works, and I make a hell of a lot more money on YouTube doing it that way than just putting out descriptive titles. Nobody watches those. And so it's, what do you do, right? The highest viewing videos are usually the dumbest. Yeah. Greed is the name of the game. It's human nature. Greed be damned. Like, what is greed? Greed is like, that's somebody else's opinion of what greed is, right? When you don't have it and they do, they're greedy, I'm not. I mean, what does that mean? Greed is a personal opinion. And there is some situations out there where you can see that somebody might have an extreme amount of abundance, and you think, man, they're cocky, they're arrogant, they don't share their wealth or whatever, and that's some sort of greedy position. Right? Okay, well, then that's the meaning that you have given it. I don't give it that meaning. Right? I look at them and I'm like, hey, to each their own, whatever, man. I mean, he has to fit into society just like everybody else. So, whatever, right? I mean, it's just like, to me, that's like, I don't give it that kind of meaning that that they're greedy or whatever. It's just like, I guess I just don't care. um, Live cheap, work hard, learn skills outside of work. Been at it for 5 years and finally got a good thing going for me and ready to take the future by the horns. Hey, that's a great comment. Thank you, Doobie. That's a great comment. All right. M Rider 777. If you think about it, we are all in the economic war with each other. There can never be peace. Yes, M Rider 777. Yes, that is exactly right. We're essentially all in competition with each other. We are all in competition with each other. We all need to eat. Think about it. If we were on land, I mean, I know it's like the primitive way of thinking about it, especially coming from, the idea of Cantillon's essay, and he uses the term savages, which again, I know it's outdated or whatever, right? The Native American population he was describing had to fight bloody battles to keep the population down because the land would only support so many people, and they had to fight over hunting grounds. That is the essential basics of economics. We all have to eat and we all can't be here. Scary, right? When you come to a fork in the road, take it. Yeah. All right. Brookville, Kansas. It is a market correction for a top 10% earners. They can afford it, and devastation for the bottom 90% earners. They want us to fight over the scraps. Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, like, they really want you to have the idea that you're supposed to do that too. If you don't have that idea, if you don't take it in that consideration, if it doesn't scare you what goes into the future, if economic collapse doesn't bother you, if you are in a position in which that you are ready to deal with just about any kind of thing that's going on, whether it's a collapse of the currency, whether it's a collapse of the government, whether it's a rise of BRICS nations, if it's, whatever is out there, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, if you are not prepared for it, like, people are like, what happens if the stock market collapses? I'm like, I don't know, my gold and silver and Bitcoin probably do pretty well. Maybe not Bitcoin, but gold and silver ought to. So, I'm not concerned. Like, my level of concern about anything, my fear level is really low, guys. Like, I don't get controlled by fear. It's like, I don't even get intimidated by people. Like, it's just like, I'm just not scared. And maybe that's actually an issue. Like, maybe that's a problem for me, but I just really don't. And so when I think about like issues that are coming up and stuff, I don't have like a fear-based consciousness that is incorporated into my thoughts. It's just not there. I mean, at least I don't feel it. So when it comes time to deal with an economic situation that's happening, I'll go into it with a very calm and confidence. Like, I don't feel nervous about anything. I don't feel nervous right now about anything that's going on. A lot of people are losing their mind. I mean, you see it all the time. You read it in the articles. I hear it at the store. People calling me up, freaking out. Man, do I need to make my lumber purchases now? I'm not going to do any bids. I'm not going to all this other stuff. And I'm like, you guys got to turn the damn news off, because you're filled with propaganda. Amen, Simon. I'm with you. Not scared. Good for you, Stephen. I mean, the problem with it, if you are nervous, you are not going to be making good. I mean, you might make a good choice, but generally speaking, if you are nervous, if you are freaking out, if you are making emotional decisions, then most likely it's going to be an incorrect decision. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but emotional decisions as opposed to logical ones, I mean, you got a 50-50 chance on whether or not it's going to be right, I have a relationship with Jesus Christ and I'm good. Our government sucks. There you go, Kirk. Could our currency get devalued lower than currencies in third world countries, if the market collapses and inflation goes up in the future? I would not, like, I am not concerned about the dollar losing value going into the future. Like, that to me is not a concern of mine. I have very little doubt that any other currency is going to rise above the dollar, only because the dollar is the most abundant currency out there to do transactions with, and very little chance that any other nation could ever take on the position in which that the United States has done, being a world reserve currency, being the issuer of U.S. Treasury debt, like the U.S. Treasuries themselves, that asset, that safe and liquid asset, and then do as much trade deficit like we have done to export those dollars out there to the world. Like, I just don't see it happening. Not anytime soon. Like, I mean, it will eventually happen. Like, there will come a time. But as of this, right now, everything that I see, all the warnings of these trades, tariffs, and all the BRICS nations and all that other stuff, again, my concern level is very low. There's nothing out there that can replace it. Like, literally, if there was something else that says, well, here, how about this thing? This thing can replace it. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, you're right. That could replace it. There's nothing out there. Gold can't do it and Bitcoin can't do it. Those are fixed currencies. The nation that is the most industrious will deny the rest of the world the ability to do transactions because they will hoard all the gold and Bitcoin for themselves, just like the United States had done. So there's no reason to think that these other nations wouldn't do it. None of those BRICS nations want to be the debtor. They don't want to be a consuming debtor nation. They want to be a production saving nation. All the BRICS nations want that. So there's no chance that any one of those guys are going to rise up and say, hey, we're going to be the consumer debtor nation like the United States has done. They won't do it. If they develop a gold currency, then it's going to get hoarded away, especially if you have dollars in circulation at the same time. The only way it'll work is if the dollar completely collapses. There will be transactions done in the BRICS nations. They're using their sovereign currency. That'll happen. There will be transactions that take place. However, the amount of transactions that they could even possibly do, due to the lack of the sheer amount, a small amount of currency that they actually have to do it with, is going to be really small comparatively to what the dollar is doing, because the dollar is so abundant. You don't want to write up a contract that is due in a currency that you will not be able to acquire. You do not want to write a contract in a currency that once you acquire it, nobody else wants it. You only want to do a contract in a currency that you can acquire and that other people are going to want. That's it. Okay? And so all the idea of these rise of BRICS nations and stuff like that, I mean, it can happen, but it's not going to come to a point that it's going to knock the dollar off its throne anytime soon, because they just don't sit in a position in which that they can do it. Like, you know, they were sitting in a position going, hey, we want to be, you know, we got the confidence of the world. We're going to be a consumer and we're going to be a debtor, and we're going to sell our debt to the world in place of the U.S. Treasury debts. And we're going to do it in such abundance that it's going to replace all the U.S. Treasury debts out there. Not going to happen. Never, not going to happen. So I ain't worried. My level of concern and worry over the BRICS nations is even less than that of the New World Order itself. All right. Buy, sell, off. We are witnessing purchase the dip. This is the moment to invest in large quantities when everyone is panicking. Right? That's very true. You buy when there's blood in the streets. You buy when people are fearful, and be fearful when people are buying. Right? Tom Flo, man, thank you so much for the support for the channel, man. You really hit the channel up with a lot of super chats, and I really appreciate it, man. I really do. $5. Your channel is one of the best. It's truth-based and no hype, no polish, no polish. Sorry, polish, no polish. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean anything by that. Plain and straightforward. Thanks. Yeah, you bet, man. Well, this is what I try to do, is to bring it out here in a way that I feel that you can use the information, like you can internalize this stuff. You now know about the Cantillon essay. You have access to it down in the description of this video. You don't have to buy the essay off of the Amazon affiliate link. You can go and get it for free. Read that essay, especially those 3 chapters in part 2, 6, 7, and 8, the increase and decrease of money to the state. It is so telling. It is absolutely telling of how it is that foreign production comes into the United States and removes the domestic manufacturers, and it was all because the people moved up in the luxuries. That's it, man. It's simple as that, right? It gets complicated on how it all goes down, but that's literally what is happening. You have become industrious, right? You earned a lot of money. You raised your standard of living. Prices moved up. Foreign competition came in. Domestic manufacturers left. Think about it. How many people right now are earning a living working, not producing physical things, but working in an information and digital-based platform? Nathan, that is exactly me. You are describing me exactly. I am a relayer of information in every way, in everything that I do. For my day job, I'm a relayer of information. What do you need? Here's what I need. This is what we need to do. We communicate back and forth. I make phone calls. I get PO numbers. I take down information, right? I take down information on this call. I relay that information into my computer, right? I relay information. That's it. Do all day long. Here, right? I internalize information. I come back out. I share what it is that I found, that I have internalized, share it with you. Sharing the information, right? Transferring information, relaying information. Go to the bingo game, right? What am I doing? Spinning the numbers, pulling it out. Yeah. B8. The next numbers, B8. Relaying information. That's all I do. I'm a relayer of information. And yeah, that's how I make all my money. Panda smugglers, they work for cheap. You got to compete. Think about it. We have millions of workers who never leave their home. They don't have to because their entire life is based on the internet and coding or web design. It's all digital. Hey, I don't even have tech. I'm not that techie of a guy. I use my cell phone for everything because I don't really have a computer. I don't even really know how to do stuff with computers, right? Certainly don't know nothing about coding, right? Or anything else, right? And all that stuff. I'm literally just use it to relay information. Right? Anybody can, let's. A lot of these digital jobs do affect the real physical things, though. Absolutely. See, now I think about it, like right now, I mean, not that I'm going to, but I could, right, hire somebody to work on my house or to do actual physical things or to buy physical things that are out there or manufacture things. So yes, you're right. There's, all they want is your mind. All right, what time is it, guys? Hey, I've got to go. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed breaking down some of this Cantillon speech with you. Again, this was chapter 8 of part 2, chapter 8. Talking about the increase and decrease of money to the state and how it is that domestic manufacturing, by your domestic manufacturing, exporting that production, increasing the money, increasing your standard of living, and eventually moving into luxuries, starts to bring in the foreign production and the whole system begins to fall apart. Understanding it as simple as that gives you the underlying economic forces to then know that it isn't a political move. There's plenty of evidence of it. It's politics that forced the manufacturing out. It's greed that forced the manufacturing out. It's this, that, all this. No, right? Cantillon described it from hundreds of years ago. It's the move into luxurious experiences that drove the prices up, period. Right? If it wasn't that, then he wouldn't have been able to describe it because he didn't have the politics hundreds of years ago to use for the excuse today. So the politics is the secondary to the underlying economic force. All right. Uneducated economist, you guys let me know.